Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sidelines.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No f***ing play is that a gimme, right?
In the words of the immortal Bernie Mac, my body weary. After everything that we went through in New England yesterday, I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik in, what is it, 70 where you are today?
It's cold here, Gresh. It's about 45 degrees, and we're all pretty cold down here, but we love that crisp air. We know it'll be in the mid-60s later and then warming up to the 80s later in the week. I appreciate it so much, and now that my twin brother John has moved back to the Northeast, I appreciate it even more. He's sending me pictures of like 2 feet of snow. It's beautiful here. I appreciate it because you know I talk about how old I am all the time as I'm about to be 48 this summer. Jesus. So you appreciate the tropical weather as you get older.
Yeah, where I am in Seekonk, Massachusetts, it snowed 37 inches. So that is the end of my driveway. So
Now?
yeah, that is at the end of my driveway. They have not plowed our road yet. In fact, yeah, look at that. So you can see my SUV. That's the wheel of my SUV right there. And I went into the roadway a little bit so that they don't completely pork me on the whenever they come and plow it. We're at the end of a cul-de-sac.
For those that aren't in the snow, when you say pork you, explain it. I mean, sort of snow you back in, right?
Yeah. So basically, the end of my driveway is nice and clear right now. When this plow goes through, I'm going to have to crank up my snowblower once again and blow the edge of that shit right back into the road so it can melt because there's going to be nowhere else to be able to put it really. And then you got to dig out around your mailbox too. Now, we may not get mail service for a couple days, but but you know, that's going to be a mess. They didn't even give us a pass through once. Jay, this is no word of a lie. From 4 to 6 a.m. where I live, we got 6 inches of snow in 2 hours. So I woke up at 6 in the morning and I'd said yesterday when it was in the middle of the blizzard. So I wake up at 6 a.m. and I'm like, I'm going to try to go do a pass-through maybe. Nope. It was 40-mile-an-hour winds blowing the snow sideways. If I could get a picture of the backyard, we have about a 5-foot fence all the way around the back. Okay, might be a little higher. We have a snowdrift that completely covers the fence out behind our basketball court. You can't see any of it. In fact, there was one spot of snow that was near a portion of fence that was so humped over and covered, I thought like a tree fell on it. It wasn't the case. It was just the snow had mounded up there. I know your brother was tweeting about 2 feet. Shit. We almost got 48. We got 37.9 inches at the Providence airport. Now, everybody talked about Blizzard of 78. Blizzard of 78, it was like 28.2 inches. This blew by it, by a yardstick. We literally had a snow-a-cane yesterday. They can do all the fancy words to it. We had a hurricane with hurricane force gusts, but it was snow, not rain.
No, thank you. No, thank you. You know, I lived in LA for 3 years in the early 2000s, and I don't think I ever was in a bad mood, despite some adversity while I was out there, just because the weather's that good. And I take things less for granted the older I get. And I appreciate the weather down here so much. I know, I feel like, oh, what are we talking about the weather? But I know it's been bananas up there. And like for my brother, it's fun to tweet out a picture of the snow, but then the reality is he can't do what he wants to do in his life. Like I'm never, up against it. I can back out of my driveway, no problem.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. So like my in-laws live a couple towns over in Rhode Island, and they at least got to pass through their road, but they got 38 inches of snow in their driveway and they're 82 and 79. They ain't moving nothing, so you got to wait till the lawn guys get there with their snow blowers to kind of at least get you to the point to where you could even get to the road. Like, honestly, if I wanted to plow down my road, I might be able to because I have an all-wheel drive and a pretty heavy car. But what am I turning on to? I have no idea. Jay, this is now normally this would be stuff like for Cody up in New Hampshire, right? Normally New Hampshire are the ones that will get absolutely obliterated. Instead, it was us. The weather people were warning folks on Sunday and Monday that if you go out, you better have a survival kit with you. Jesus. Because if you get stuck, they may not be able to come get you. So there was one point during the storm, Jay, where literally every city stopped plowing. You couldn't see, you couldn't get anywhere. There were big plows that were getting stuck. So at one point in the middle of the storm, they had to shut people down because there were town trucks that like they needed a town plow or the National Guard to come help get this, giant salt and plow truck from being stuck. Dude, it's the wildest thing that I've ever seen. And trying to plow out of it and around it was really weird because in some places there would be 4 inches. In some spots in my backyard, there's 5-foot drifts. But anyway, enough about that. I know there are a lot of people watching right now, and I even tweeted out, listen, you shoveled out yesterday. You're hurting. Sit down and watch us and have a little fun. Because I mean, hey, look, I'm not in great shape. I'm old as hell. I did have a snowblower, but I was like chopping down snow to be able to get to the point where I could snowblow it. It was so high. And the later snow was nice and fluffy. The earlier snow was really compact. I mean, I don't know how people are getting around Boston. I don't know how they're unless you're dumping it in the ocean, I don't know where they're putting this snow.
Well, right. There's nowhere to put this stuff. Anyway, speaking of putting stuff, Jack Hughes found a spot for something, put something in the back of the net.
Yeah,
Team USA. Let's get to that real quick. So, the U.S. men's hockey team wins the gold medal, and it was obviously amazing. And I just want to tell you, you can thank me because I had no money in my sportsbook account, right? And all of a sudden I'm watching this game and I'm like, Canada is so much better than the United States of America. This is hilarious. With respect to the US, they were just getting outskated, right? It's like, how much faster is Canada? I was like, is this a hockey team? Are these college hockey players on the US side? That's how good Canada was. So I made a deposit. We made a bet on Canada after the third period. I sent a text to Cody. I'm like, minus 115 Canada? What am I missing? What you're missing, son, is that it's 3-on-3. Mm-hmm. God bless the USA, but I took Canada down. I was thrilled. That was super exciting to watch. And before I let you wax poetic, I'll say the goalie. Okay. Connor, what is it? Hellebuck?
Connor Hellebuck. Yep.
Reminded me of Tim Thomas for the Boston Bruins back in 2011. Was not going to be denied. That performance from him, that one particular save with the stick, forget about it, but just unbelievable to watch. And after watching the Toronto Blue Jays collapse against the Los Angeles Dodgers, 46 years later, we will fucking take it, won't we, Gresh?
Yeah, no, it was a great victory. And when the U.S. got up 1-0, I thought, oh, this will be interesting. And then it was 1-1, and Canada dominated the second period. You got into the third period and everybody started to get a little tight. And I was working live on VSiN at the time. And I said, boy, plus money on going to overtime. I think I kind of like that right now. And sure enough, it ends up going to OT. Then it goes to 3-on-3, which I'm glad we won. Okay. Now I know Canada has been on the wambulance about the whole 3-on-3. It's too much. Go to 4-on-4 for a period,
agree.
Then go to 3-on-3 maybe. The reason they went to 3-on-3, or the reason they changed the overtime in the NHL, is because you don't want those guys wearing down over an 82-game season. This really should be sudden death. Honestly, play a period of 5-on-5, then go to 4-on-4, then maybe go to third overtime, you go to 3-on-3 to settle it so these guys don't completely get gassed out. And it's almost like a football. It's like the Super Bowl going into overtime, and then it ends on a field goal kicking contest.
Yes, I agree with every word out of your mouth. It feels more like a shootout 3-on-3. It's like, oh shit, I really felt like my bet was stupid because it's so wide open. You see Connor McDavid just go 1-on-3 because it's so wide open. But you know, with the better keeper, the U.S. probably felt great getting into overtime. It's just fascinating. They're playing defense. Their chances, they have to execute so perfectly on the offensive side to get a shot off, whereas Canada's doing whatever they want, looking like they're on a power play the whole game. It was just unbelievable. Cody brought up a point, and forgive my hockey ignorance. Hellebuyck has won 3 straight Vezinas for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, there you go, right? So he was incredible. It just blows my mind. But so much to get to with this game. How about the Gaudreau children? Johnny Gaudreau.
Oh, that one great job by their teammates. That was, I mean, you know what? They've never forgotten about the Gaudreaus, and the family was there. The mom and dad were there. And I forget the players who it was that came out, teammates of the Gaudreau boys.
So for those that don't know, back in 2024, Johnny Gaudreau and his brother, forgive me, the name is escaping me, were in a horrible accident biking and got hit, I think, by a drunk driver. Both were killed, got 2 young children. Matthew Tkachuk, I guess maybe was one that took one of the kids, but they brought the kids out for the picture and the parents are in the stands. It was just emotional and amazing. And, the United States does win in the right way a lot of the time, right? Like that was just a special moment all around. And, I know we transitioned quickly, obviously, to Gaudreau from the game itself, but I did feel for the Canadians because they were just the superior team. And that's why your point about OT, falls on very good ears here. That 3-on-3, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it felt too much. If you're playing regular hockey and it's 4-on-4, at least you're kind of sticking to the spirit of the competition and what they just went through for those 60 minutes. Now, Hellebuyck, to me, got screwed out of tournament MVP. It ended up going to McDavid, but you know what? Again, we were doing this live on VSiN on the weekend morning line, which, by the way, you can watch on Nesson Plus for those of you who have it. Oh, yeah, it's on Nesson Plus.
Line, Andrew Gresh, who's the co-host?
It's Will Hill. He's a dude out of Connecticut and a full-timer over at VSiN. He won, I think, the Circa College Basketball 2023 or something like that. He's real good at hoops.
Let's get some plays from this guy.
So we were going through it live, and we were wondering about tournament MVP, and the odds kept going up and down. Turns out there was one of the reporters there who said that they voted for it after the first period. And then, so it went to McDavid. It's a one, instead of waiting until the game being over or waiting until going into overtime and then voting on who would be the tournament MVP. So that way you can take the result or at least factor in the result of the gold medal game in terms of giving that award. So yeah, that's a bad job. They got to tighten that up over there with the Olympics. And again, we're going to pay attention to it because Hellebuyck, the overhead shot, Jay, of reaching back with the stick and knocking the puck out of the crease, that shot from above, that will be the Connor Hellebuyck shot that will end up defining his career as good as he is in the NHL.
Well, it's just unbelievable. And there were so many. That was an exceptional save. He made so many great saves. He was a step ahead all night. That's why Tim Thomas came to mind in that Game 7 back in 2011. He was just so ahead of it. His instincts, he was just moving the right way and felt like he was a step ahead of the potential goal scorer. It was just phenomenal. The women's hockey team wins a gold as well, so the U.S. gets that golden sweep. And Cody brought up a great point, which I think is really interesting. Right now, we talked about the Olympics, and maybe we weren't as into it as we were before. But the women's, right? The 2018 gold medal have driven even sharper momentum among girls' participation, right? In girls' hockey. 65% increase over the past 15 seasons as young athletes finally see these role models in girls' hockey. It's unbelievable. All these sports, obviously flag football coming about, but Cody thought that was an important point. I wanted to make that on his behalf. But yeah, let's not lose sight of the women hoisting the gold medal as well.
Well, and there was the video of the youth hockey team that was literally in the middle of a game where they found out the U.S. won and they stopped and they all skated to their benches and they were high-fiving each other, all these
Amazing.
Little kids, and then they cranked it up again. Yeah, that was pretty neat and it was pretty cool. And look, my little niece Stella, we're Slovaks, right? But my brother and I are fat Slovaks, so we ended up gravitating towards football. She plays hockey, and she's got the gene. She's like me and my brother. She's a prick, and especially on the ice, like knocking kids over and really liking doing it. That kind of deal.
I love it.
And I'm sure her little team was into it. They follow those girls. Like for me, it's a whole nother world. I really do think the older I get, Jay, there's a lot of stuff that girl dads don't get introduced to, and there's a lot of stuff that boy dads don't get introduced to. And it's in the same sort of universe because it's kid, but it's really crazy how it's divided by the sexes of certain things that your kids gravitate to that you get exposed to that you normally wouldn't have any other way.
100%. So before we move off the hockey, I just want to say one thing, and I don't want to be too critical, but Kenny Albert on the call, right? So I just have to say, right, with the utmost respect, right? Mm-hmm. A hockey guy and does a great job, far better than I could ever do. But when it goes into OT, like you got to know. Now, my brother John, UFC play-by-play guy, doesn't think too much about calls, right?
Right.
But when you think back to Al Michaels' 1980, Do You Believe in Miracles? And you think about the opportunity for Kenny Albert, especially when the game goes into overtime 3-on-3 and what potentially is at stake. I just maybe think the moment came a little quick for Kenny there, and maybe he would like a take back, not too memorable a call on the sticks for Marv's son.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot like what John deals with, at least with his 3-man booth, he can turn to the right and make eye contact with those guys. Like they've got who was it? Brian Boucher, Rhode Island's own, down on ice level. They got Eddie Olczyk up there, and then there's Kenny. And to your point, Jay, I think it snuck up on everybody. Let me ask you, when you were watching, snuck up on you, right? Like even me, I was like, oh my God! They said it took a second to realize that Hughes ended up scoring that goal. I wonder if Jack Hughes, by the way, gets 45 years of relevance the way Mike Eruzione has. Jesus, can that guy just go away now? Sorry.
Well, and did those teeth get smacked out same game? I mean, you can't make it up. It's just
dude, it was getting the smile. And somebody tried to ask him a wise ass question, politically related. And Jack Hughes' answer was, I love it that I live in the greatest country in the world with the greatest dentists. And he pointed to his face. And it was like, what a great way to deflect from that. And that, you know what? That's another one of those pictures where like that's going to be hanging in the Hughes family house forever with the broken tooth. You don't want it when it's all fixed. You want the broken tooth in there. And I will say, I'm a little disappointed in the way Canada has kind of handled this. Like, had they won 3-on-3 wouldn't be a big deal. And they all agreed to it before they went in. It's for us to bitch about because we didn't realize it was going to go down to 3-on-3 on the gold medal game.
But you totally agree with them, as I do. It became a little farcical. The overtime in the gold medal game shouldn't be a farcical, right? Cody says 3-on-3 benefits them. No, in my opinion, it just because it's too removed from what the game is. It's too fluky. That's what there's, so I'm with you, Gresh, in terms of, but I kind of agree with the Canadians, even us as fans of the US. It felt well, a huge advantage. It feels like more of a coin flip where it shouldn't.
I think there's a little bit of, they're sort of taking it out on themselves because you could argue they were the better team. My whole thing is all these countries agree, all these hockey federations agreed to it going in. And Canada is arguably the biggest one. So if you had the big objection, at least for the gold medal game, make it 4-on-4 for 10 minutes. Then maybe you go to 3-on-3, find a happy medium then. It just feels like you're kind of getting in the ambulance when you had the U.S. lost, it would have been, oh shit, it's a part of the 30 years of them getting beat, but at least they were close. And with Canada, it's like, you've known it's been this way all along. It's not like this is the first Olympics that it was. And then I was just a little disappointed from them considering, not that they've gotten every break over the years, but they've been so dominant and it was bound to happen. And look, they got outworked for 2 minutes. So in the mind of the hockey player, it's going to be, we got outworked for 2 minutes in a 60-minute game where we dominated. So if that makes him feel good at night, wrap yourself in that blanket and go to sleep.
Fair. And one thing I'll say finally before we move on to the round ball, when Brad Marchand is on the ice, it's really hard for me to root for the opposing team, whether it's Canada, whether it's the Florida Panthers. It's unbelievable. Like, my wife comes in the room. She's like, oh, is Marchand playing? And it's like, gosh, man, he is so difficult for me to root against. I remember our producer, Cody Merrow, who's from New England. I used to ask him if he's a Celtics fan, and he was not a Celtics fan. He would tell me, I'm a LeBron fan. And then I would throw up in my mouth when he would say he was a LeBron fan, but I'm joking, Cody. But I am a Brad Marchand fan, almost to the point like Kevin Garnett, where I'm like rooting for Brooklyn back in the day because I love KG so much.
No, I hear you. And what's crazy is Marshy don't look old at 37. I know he's not playing the same amount of minutes,
great point.
But you know what? Instead of maybe getting 30 minutes out of him, you're still getting 20 quality minutes out of the guy. Like, he's played very well. He's such a pain in the ass. I mean, really, like that. Yeah. And seeing him on the other side now, it's like, it just reminds you why we fell in love with him, because he's Woody Woodpecker. He's an instigator.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to the Boston Celtics. I mean, I could do hours on Joe Mazzulla. They get a couple wins. They smashed Golden State and smashed the Lakers. I mean, it was interesting. Reggie Miller made a comparison to Caitlin Clark's face and compared her to Peyton Pritchard, and she didn't like it that much, right? But forgetting the fact that Caitlin Clark might be a top 5 and a WNBA player, and Peyton Pritchard, is now coming off the bench. But you know what I mean? Like, Pritchard, man, like, I'll tell you what, is in the last 7 games coming off the bench, Peyton Pritchard, right? 47% from 3, averaging 23.6 points per game. That includes a 6-point effort. Like, Joe Mazzulla just not afraid to tweak things even when the season's going well. Certainly did the right thing there. I mean, amazing that we're talking about this team like this without Jason Tatum.
No question about it. And that game in LA, Jaylen, I was on the over on Jaylen Brown in that game because he was going to take it out on the Beverly Hills Police Department in LA. He's still, complaining about that whole party getting shut down. Here's the thing with Peyton Pritchard that I've come to appreciate. Here's how I will compare him to, believe it or not, Steph Curry. Steph Curry's not a great defender, but Steph Curry gives you maximum effort trying to play defense. I think Peyton Pritchard has gotten to that point. Now, sometimes he can't stop me or you, and that's just the way it is. And there are going to be some guys that are going to school him. There were times where I thought he didn't hustle enough. He didn't work the angles. He didn't anticipate and things like that. And while he's never going to be a great defender because he's little, I appreciate the effort that Peyton Pritchard is putting into the defense, trying to get his hand in there, like it's as if, can you teach defense? I think so, because it's really nothing more than effort and intensity. And I think we're now getting that from Pritchard, even though he still might get torched sometimes because he's just not a great defender. But I appreciate the fact that he hasn't given up on that end, and he's still trying to get better.
Juxtaposed to the Los Angeles Lakers, who do look as though they've given up on that end and don't have maximum effort. No. And I will say, LeBron James, who was a gifted defender back in the day, like, you can just see the age on that end of the floor. That first step, especially defensively, just isn't there. I mean, you see Jaylen Brown being able to go by LeBron at ease. And how about Hugo Gonzalez, 19 years old, making an impact on the game, covering LeBron James? It's just unbelievable to me. And Joe Mazzulla is, coach of the year going away right now. And in terms of Jason Tatum, right? You had a really interesting point in the rundown. I don't want to steal your thunder, but you're talking about this documentary, and you said, like, all this stuff, this whole process, all this banter, and you can elaborate on this. Like, he wouldn't be doing all this if he wasn't coming back before the end of the season, in your opinion, right?
Yeah. If you go to Twitter, folks, and I'm pulling it up now, so at JTatum0. It is Jason Tatum's real Twitter account, 1.4 million followers.
Not a burner.
There's a link to the full episode of something called The Quiet Work Chapter 1. Now, I haven't watched it, but here's what I know. There's about a 30-second trailer on there, and I think it's his mom who's mixed in this documentary, or at least what they're showing as well. And it basically begins where it needs to begin. Here's the injury. Even on the trailer, they show him like kind of being rolled into surgery, kind of. And would you put in this much work to not come back? The quiet work doesn't end with, well, Jason's ready to play full force in 2027. There's no chance. There's no chance. So if you were nervous or you were a Celtic fan and you were a little bit skittish and you were worried maybe about JT coming back, is he going to go in? And here it is right here. Is he going to go? I mean, look at this trailer, right? And I know we're not playing the audio or everything, but there he is talking about how he was cooking, and then he gets hurt, and then here we go. Does this piece of art, or whatever we call it, look like the work of someone who is not intending to come back this year?
I think it's a great point. No. And what I'll say too about Tatum, right? Like, I love the fact that he had a documentary crew with him, right? And someone probably brought that up to him. And I think in a way it can add an extra layer of accountability when you're in that off season and everything's being filmed. You know, I think it's important to be accountable. A lot of people work out with personal trainers just so they can be accountable to that person. But in terms of Tatum coming back, right? Like, it's a great story the way this team has played without him, but it's not a championship team in my opinion. Is it Vucevic?
Vucevic, yeah. Vucevic,
I feel like I keep butchering his name, but I'm
Vucevic.
He's surprising me a little bit. I like what I'm seeing out of him, but the idea that Joe Mazzulla can't figure out a way to integrate Jason Tatum, especially given the style in which they play, I just don't think it's a big ask. And so ultimately, I think everyone can talk till they're blue in the face about the mental, right? And I'm going to trust that Jason Tatum can be there in terms of the mental. I don't know how long it's going to take for him to be sort of 100% what he was, but I do believe the injection of this guy, the sort of hyperbole once he got injured, saying, oh, if the Celtics can add Jason Tatum in free agency, look out. It really feels like a reality. And at 15-1 or whatever it is to win the title, like, and the Western Conference maybe not be in the front running with OKC as it was. Why not? They got that championship medal. I think he comes back. I think they are a problem in the Eastern Conference, if nothing else.
Oh, there's no question about it. Look, with Jason Tatum back, if he can be 80% of himself, that is still better than what you're getting from guys like Jordan Walsh and Hugo Gonzalez, with all respect to those guys. But there's no one that even with James Harden going to Cleveland, there's no one that you could add that would have a bigger impact to a team than bringing back Jason Tatum. The question is, does Tatum still want to walk back in the door and be the man? Or at least for right now, does he want to get in where he can kind of fit in?
Yes.
And if that is the mentality, then Joe Mazzulla, I think, has got something to really work with.
I guarantee that's the mentality. But
I hope so. No, but because if Tatum walks through the door and thinks, hey, I got to be the number one option, even though I'm coming back from injury, let's just be realistic about this. Not that he's just going to be any other guy. Okay, I'm not saying you're still not treating him like a superstar, but I do think relative to this year, there's got to be a little bit of an understanding, get in where you can fit in, or fit in where you can get in.
Well, and I think that understanding is frankly built into his comments earlier about, appreciating what the team has done in his absence. Mm-hmm. He's a very humble star, as even Mazzulla said, and I think that'll go a long way. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are very unique. You could take their words all you want, but I feel as though they're like, they truly are like family. The fact that they're not like connected like boys, like the best of friends, but it doesn't even matter because they really are like brothers, right? Like I don't think Jason Tatum spends a lot of time stewing over the fact that Jaylen Brown was the NBA Finals MVP. I just don't think he does. And I think Jason Tatum, the fact that they have a chance after injuring his Achilles last year to maybe win a chip this year, I bet for Jason Tatum, he can't believe they're in the position they are. And I think he'll do anything he can to help and not hurt. It's going to be difficult to take this team to that next level in a way, right?
Well, here is the silver lining in all of this, right? In a lot of ways, this has already been a successful year for the Celtics. You could argue that Brad Stevens has hit on another first-round pick, right? Hugo Gonzalez can play. I know he drafted Baylor Shireman in the first round. That's a guy who's been filling. He as a bench player, he can play. He's played too much so far.
So much effort, though. That guy looks as though he's playing in the NBA Finals every time he's out there.
I love it. And you know what? But to the point, you get a guy like that where you're now cutting those minutes down, and he's going to be able to give you good effort, and you know what he can do. So from the development angle, you've at least got one guy. Now, I know they got that center up in the G League that they can always throw in here, too. Quetta has done a really good job of at least becoming a serviceable center. You hit on a first-round pick. Traded away Simons and got Vucevic, who for this particular team fits really well. Now, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So if we're back to paying the tax, which they're down below to reset the number this year, you can keep Vucevic and you still have another slot for about a $15 million player, which would be some mid-level veteran who can come in and really complement what you have. You know, you got D. White. Pritchard's getting better. All of a sudden, Brad Stevens is maybe one free agent signing away this offseason from resetting this roster and resetting the tax and still being able to add pieces.
I know LeBron hates Boston, but gosh, as he enters free agency, assuming that he said the Lakers are not a championship team, gosh, I wish LeBron would take a peek at Boston. You know, you can go back to Cleveland, right? And I don't know if James Harden's still going to be there and deal with that noise. LeBron James would fit superbly well on this Celtics team. It would be a great spot for him to be able to sort of not have to run the complete show and be able to, you know, it would be a great fit. And he would be willing to maybe part with some dollars to do it. But I just think there's too much hate for the green and white.
Here is normally I would just throw cold water all over that. But here's the reason why it could happen. And I'm talking about from a Celtics end. What's LeBron known for doing everywhere he goes? He wants to try to change the coach. Why is he no longer in Miami? Because when he wanted the coach change, Pat Riley told him, fuck off. So he ran because it was someone who wasn't going to give him what he wants. LeBron, if he leaves LA, he is giving up the fact that he then loses control of his situation somewhat. And the Celtics have a head coach who ain't going anywhere. Management ain't getting rid of him. And it's more of a, if you're going to come here, this is the guy, LeBron, that you're going to have to adapt to. Not the other way around. We're not going to bring in somebody who has adapted to you. It's going to be the other way around. And if you didn't have a strong organization, you really would be worried about bringing in someone like LeBron because he wants to come in and be it. It's the tail wagging the dog versus the dog wags the tail. And if LeBron leaves LA, it would be the first time in his career where he wouldn't have that kind of stroke. Now that in and of itself, Jay, may keep LeBron from even entertaining it. But to your point, if he maybe isn't going to get a max contract anyway, and he's only going to get whatever he's going to get, then what matters to him in choice? Because I don't think anywhere, even if he went to Cleveland, if he's there for a year, they're not going to change the coach for him or anything like that. So if LeBron leaves LA, he is saying to everyone that he'll be adaptable. And let's see if that really happens.
I just think he's got a much better chance to get a ring with Boston than Cleveland.
Would the city revolt though?
Boston?
Do you think let's say what you just spoke comes into existence? Do people here then completely wash away their 20 years of hate to embrace him for one?
Yeah, Cody said he'd become a god. I couldn't agree more. But I'll tell you right now, if someone were to ask LeBron about Boston, I still think he hates the city. Certainly there's some racial tension in this city that I think certain players, aren't gravitating towards. But I think it would be absolutely fascinating. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are very unique stars. I think LeBron has personal relationships with both, likes them both. Talked about Jaylen's MVP candidacy after that game the other night. So, there was video of him and Tatum playing golf together. You never know.
It would be it'd be a lot of fun. I would say that. For those of us who love football, a different kind of fun is going to begin sooner than later, and that would be the combine. So, of course, free agency is right around the corner. And you know what? Fans are being fans right now. Everywhere you go on social media, it's insert biggest name here and then root for New England to sign them. I don't want to burst bubbles, but methinks New England's going to be a little more selective than that. I don't think this is going to be, let's ride the roller coaster and go spend a bunch of money. I think it's going to be now. Now, Jay, what I think New England is about to start to do is selective shopping. It doesn't mean they're not going to spend money. It just means they're going to be very selective in where they do to improve real key points on this football team.
And I really trust the brass to be able to do so. I think they did an excellent job in free agency in the draft.
I trust Mike Vrabel.
Well, and the reason
because I think he is a big part of this evaluation process.
100%. But the reason I say I trust the brass is because I think Elliott Wolf is settled into his role, and Mike Vrabel has instilled some confidence in him and his team, which I think is nice. And there's also, forgive me, the name is escaping me, but the personnel guy that Vrabel brought with him as
Steichen?
well.
No, that's Steichen.
That's
the guy Stretch, whatever. Yeah. He also helps manage the game as well.
So one thing that I just wanted to, as we talk about free agency, certainly Milton Williams worked out, Carlton Davis, but I would say that some of the Vrabel guys, Robert Spillane, Jarvis Landry, I don't know how well those worked out. And as you and I have talked about sort of linebacker, middle linebacker, having that dude when it gets by that first level to sort of be there. You've talked about them addressing that in the draft, but I guess your point about being selective makes great sense to me because I think last year there was a lot of volume. And while they had a great year all around, there were guys like Spillane that for the casual fan, maybe like me, I saw a lot of good where maybe as someone who looks a little deeper into it for you saw that as a hole out there at times. So I guess I trust what they're going to do, but I think they can also recognize that some of the areas where they brought in Vrabel guys, they didn't hit home runs.
No doubt. And I think that's free agency in reality. Like there are very few free agent classes like Bill Belichick had in 2001, where it was literally every guy that they brought in some way, shape, or form contributed in some way to that championship along the way. And you know what? That stuff's going to happen. John Stretch. Yeah, that's the guy's name that Vrabel brought in. And you're right. They haven't neutered Elliott Wolf. And I thought Elliott was one of those people where when Belichick was there, it was like, oh my God, I'm afraid to come out. And, so he has gained a little bit of confidence.
And he was bullish on Trevion Henderson. There's footage. And whether that he ends up being a good selection or not, Elliott Wolf, I think maybe, put his big boy pants on in the moment there.
No, I agree. And they let go Antonio Gibson, which kind of stinks. I mean, I was hoping they were going to keep that depth. They released him yesterday. Middle of the snowstorm.
And
they just plowed him.
Rehabilitation.
They just plowed him into the snow. But
Cody just put in there. He's talking about Will Campbell. Elliott Wolf on Will Campbell per Todd McShay, or I guess per the Patriots. With Will specifically, I personally didn't see the same level of lower body strength that you saw before the injury. He probably had 3 or 4 of his worst games in the playoffs. Yeah, we talked about that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. For everybody who wants to think that Will Campbell's moving, he's not. Do you know who else was a short arm guy? Now, I'm not saying Will Campbell's turning into him. Joe Thomas of the Browns. The issue with Campbell was lower body related. If you look at a lot of times he was making contact, everybody's pointing out, he doesn't have his arms extended. That's because you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. It's more of the anchoring of his feet. There were too many times, Jay, where his set or his angle was bad. And when he was making contact, one foot was off the ground, or the leg that was compromised was the one that was kind of behind him where he's trying to brace himself and he just couldn't do it. For those who watch real O-line play, and I guess I'm crapping on some of the people who might be watching right now, everybody makes a big deal about the short arms and stuff like that. If you have good footwork, your feet are anchored, and you have technique, you can play that position with that arm length. Joe Thomas is a goddamn Hall of Famer, and he was a guy who was talked about with short arms. it was more about Campbell's leg and his knee and his feet than it was anything else. That's why he was okay during the regular season. When he was healthy, his timing and his angles and his footwork was good. His footwork was bad in the Super Bowl because his goddamn knee was compromised.
And, you know, under the brightest of lights, right? Armand Membu for the Jets had a fine year, but there's no microscope on that guy. So I expect Bill Campbell to bounce back. You know, obviously there's Tyler Linderbaum out there, the big name in terms of the offensive line. I think that's a guy you'd like to see come home.
Go get that big fucking center. Go get a guy who's smart, who's big, who's badass, would I love for him to be a little bigger? Of course I would. I like big old centers. I think they work and they work well. But if you're gonna make an O-line signing, there's a couple of, half of Cleveland's offensive line. Now listen, if they think Joel Bitonio is worth investing in at guard, then I'll live with Wilson playing center, but Linderbaum would be a home run. You know why, Jay? He's 25 years old. And what was one thing that Tom Brady rarely had? If you think about it in his career, think of how many centers Tom Brady went to Super Bowls with, not only in New England, but when he went to Tampa as well. Now, normally, like Peyton Manning and Jeff Saturday, you'd love to find your middle, have your anchor of your offensive line be your center, your quarterback be the mind of it, and everybody kind of grow together. What better way to support your quarterback than it would be to bring in a guy who would come in here and be the center for half a decade and let those two get to know each other and settle in. And now you're really talking about, from a offensive coordinator standpoint, having a guy in the middle that can grow with your QB so that all of that communication becomes the same amongst everybody. To me, it's just too juicy. Now, do I think they'll do it? Nah, I don't know. I think he's going to get a real massive contract, and the Patriots would have to think long and hard as to about what they would want to do. But, Jay, think about it from that end. Like Brady, it was like Copen, Mr. Wendell, Ryan Wendell. Remember that little guy for a period of time? The Stork, Brian Stork for a couple of years. Dan Connolly was mixed in there, right? Like when you really think about the old-time quarterbacks, they had their centers forever, right? Like when you thought about it, like Montana always had his. They did that in Kansas City. I just think it would be a home run to get Linderbaum to combine with Drake May to allow that middle to grow.
Well, and you see here Ted Nguyen saying he's going to reset the market. Very good chance that could happen. I don't think the Patriots are going to be the big buyer in this spot, especially John Harbaugh with the Giants. Maybe he follows his old coach back there. I know we're going to get to some UFC stuff. Cody, I know you have something about some of these free agent quarterbacks. And one thing I'll say, I really do trust the way the Patriots are going to move these things forward. And before we talk about the quarterbacks, I'll say I know we saw Kraft and Vrabel vacationing together in St. Bart's or whatever.
And
Robert Kraft,
little gas exclusive here, because can I give you the backstory?
Please. Sorry, Cody.
I don't even want to. Someone I know. Okay, I'm not even going to say a friend. Someone that I know that I'm connected to through marriage was somehow in St. Bart's during this whole weekend and snowstorm and mess. And my wife gets a text message and it says, "Hey, I'm in St. Bart's. Kraft and Vrabel are here. I just gave Vrabel a fist bump." So I don't know what was going on. And all of a sudden it's photos of like RKK leaning back and talking to somebody. And then all of a sudden there's like Vrabel sitting there. So
RKK has the strongest pimp hand of all time. When he asks you to go on vacation, you go, right? It's like Mike Vrabel is like Kraft's like, we're going to go on vacation. Kraft does it right. The white party, Kraft is invited. Kraft, any big time celebrity spot, Robert Kraft has an invitation. So you go when Vrabel asks you to go somewhere.
You know what's
or when Kraft asks you to go somewhere.
No, you mentioned Kraft and the pimp hand or whatever. So one of my last years on the Patriots radio network, we used to do the post-game show from CBS Scene, and they came over with the AFC Championship trophy. And my wife was kind of sitting near me, and she was so giddy that Robert and Jonathan sat down to talk to us, right? And she's right there. I introduced my Mr. Kraft again. He was, "Hello, Betsy, how are you?" and she kissed his hand like he was the fucking Pope. Like literally. Now you've heard enough stories about my wife, I'm sure, from your brother, and you can imagine. But yeah, she like kissed his hand 3 times. I turn and look at her, and she goes, "I panicked. I didn't know what to do," and I was just like, "Oh my god!" But yeah, well, you're right. When Kraft says, "Come on, Mike," I wonder if that was the end of year bonus. You know what I mean? Hey, we're going to get on the bird, bring you a lady. We're going to St. Bart's for a weekend because I made a fuck ton of money with the Super Bowl.
You know, it's hilarious, but it also, to me, points to the relationship as well, right? Where Gerard Mayo isn't necessarily going and hanging out in St. Bart's. There's a relationship there with Vrabel.
Good point.
And that matters a lot to me. Like, that's really cool to see. There's got to be a closeness there. Belichick and Kraft aren't going anywhere together after a while. You can be sure.
It also reminds all of us how much stroke Vrabel really does have.
Yeah.
You know, like if there's something that he really wants to get done, he can pick up the phone and call. You know what? They can't do that in Green Bay. You're going to call a shareholder and see if you should make some kind of move? Like, hell no. So yeah, it's funny. Cody just put in the private chat like AJ Brown. I don't know. I wonder if Vrabel really thinks he's got to go get somebody like that.
I love AJ Brown, but I'm not really that interested in that player entering into this locker room, especially if Stephon Diggs is still there, which I want Stephon Diggs to still be there. I'm very bullish on the Patriots receiving core. I think there's depth there. You know, even when you talk about a guy like Alec Pierce, who's available in free agency, I like Kayshon Boutte going up and getting the football. Like, I want Kyle Williams to develop. That's not a position that I would like to see them get aggressive with. If you're asking, just one man's opinion.
Yeah, no, if anything, a wide receiver, I want him to keep adding youngs. You know, you have Kyle Williams in the pipeline. Add another mid-round pick. I brought up Skylar Bell, the kid from UConn. I think that's somebody who can really play. And Cody just mentioned add another stud running back in the draft. I don't think he'll be the stud running back. You know what we're here for now? It's the 5th, 6th, and 7th round guys. It's the now it's the take a chance on. It's the Ben Jarvis. It's fine Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. You know what I mean? Like someone like that, where you may not want him to be your number one, but if they have to carry the ball 20 times, they're not going to go out there and completely crap their pants.
Fair. So I'm glad the UFC had a nice main card last weekend. 4 out of the last 5 fights on the main card ended in knockout. So it had some juice there. You know, I've said this over and over again. It really feels as though the UFC is kind of punting on the first half of 2026. Interesting, given that it's the Paramount Plus era. And I know my brother is employed by them. But it is just fascinating how, go to UFC.com. It's just fascinating to me how little is on paper. Even if you think about what the next big main numbered event, it's the BMF belt. So fascinating to me, even though it was a good card, happy for Strickland. But yeah, still not a lot to look forward to yet with the big show, if you ask me.
Yeah, you're right. There's it's almost like a WWE WrestleMania feel. And what I mean by that is they know WrestleMania on its own sells tickets, and then they roll out the card, as well. That's why people jumped on Rousey Carano, because it was 2 big names that people could at least feel nostalgic about. And to your point, Jay, we're going to Vegas for UFC 326, and my wife said, what's the main event? And when I told her, she goes, is that for a belt? I said, it's for the BMF belt. And you kind of go, oh, okay. Yeah, not that you're necessarily let down, but if the lightweight title were on the line, there'd be a little more juice. You know what I'm saying? Bingo. Or if there were I think you know what it is? I think for as much as we're going out there, it's a juiceless numbered event. I so want to call it a pay-per-view because it's the lexicon that we've used forever. But Jay, to your point, I know there's a lot of focus on the White House card, and I'm sure there's a lot of energy and resources going into that, and also trying to make sure that Conor McGregor can get there. And that card isn't even announced, and we don't know where that's going to go yet. So I'm kind of with you, and maybe this is where, Jay, the UFC, they know they have so many juicy fights they can make. Maybe they're just kind of lying in wait right now and figuring out how to piece all of those in, because you and I could sit here and think of 10 main event type fights, probably off the top of our head. So it's one of two things. They're either feeling themselves and know they can just snap their fingers and make certain fights and people are going to get jacked up about it, or they got their head up their ass and they're behind because of this White House thing.
Yeah, I think they have a very specific plan for the White House. I really do. I think we're going to see, I think the card is going to be insane. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised by a lot of things that happen. I want to talk about one thing that happened this last weekend because I thought it was kind of inappropriate, but kind of funny from the referee. I know he's taking a lot of heat, but Jacoby Smith beats Josiah Harrell, first round knockout. And, Smith, clearly has him out on the canvas and it's a little bit of a late stoppage, but then Terry Hatley, he sort of reacts like, he reacted to his own late stoppage, but go ahead. Yeah. Getting after the fighter a little bit. And I'm like, all right, easy there, buddy.
I'm sorry. I was making a Kerry Hatley joke because whenever they always are, you're a referee, Kerry Hatley. And he always goes like this. And he always does. I don't know what the hand signal is or who he's signaling to, but he's done it every time. You're right, Jay. This is a late stoppage.
I'm glad you found this, Cody. So he gets in there late, and then look at this. And then this how many extra shoves, Kerry, right? And I think my brother on the broadcast, blamed the official for the late stoppage. I'm not trying to I know it is bang, bang, and quick, right? But ultimately, you could see this sort of ending coming. And then for me, and then that extra shove, like, all right, he's off. Relax. And for the fighter, you'll hear all these fighters talk about, it's the official's job to drag him off. They're not all going to be walk-offs like Jeff Neal going to the canvas, Uros Medic putting him to the canvas. Coming out of his nose.
Boy, you know what? I think my boys and I are on a hot streak betting Uros Medic, by the way. Remember I reacted last week because every time he's on the card, my kid will just either text me or if he's at home from school, he'll just be like, oh, guess who's fighting Uros Medic? And I'm like, all right, we got to lock in the bet on him.
And what was he, plus 170? It's like everybody like, oh, Jeff Neal's am
plus
I right?
Plus 185.
Okay, so and it's like everybody's like, oh, Jeff Neal been sober 100 days off of this insane binge. And like anybody who went to the window or put Jeff Neal in a parlay, it's like, wow. I mean, there's so much value on the other side of that. And Jeff Neal's someone you can't trust. Good that you guys found value there.
Well, we just love Uros Medic because it's a hell of a name, number one. And hey, listen, that guy, I mean, if you stand in his way, he'll knock you out. It's kind of simple. He is a problem. I thought the performance by Sean Strickland was, I'm not going to go masterful, but it was really impressive. When you look at the skins that guy has, and you look at the wins that he has put up, I mean, really, it's like 2 through 6 in the division he's beat. And it does make me wonder if the post-fight comments, as much as Dana White allows those, and, it's fine, let people be who they are, but I wonder if that keeps from embracing him completely, because, Jay, if he were someone who kind of got along to get along, so to speak, he'd be undeniable. Now, even now, with the comments that make some people cringe, he should be undeniable given the people that he's beaten. But I wonder if there's just that tiny bit of hesitancy.
Yeah, maybe if the UFC was on Fox, that hesitancy wouldn't be there. Who knows, right?
No, it's a crazy world. No, there's a world we live in.
But you talk about
letting to the big dollar.
You talk about letting people be who they are, right? And I forget the name of the guy who scales these mountains and buildings, but there's a documentary I saw, Free Solo, and his name's Alex. Forgive me, the last name is escaping me. But they did a test on his brain, this guy that'll scale these mountains with no rope. You know what I mean? And his brain, it's like the fear part of his brain was tiny. And I think that for Sean Strickland, there's a certain way in which his brain is wired that the big moments are not too much for him in any way, shape, or form. He looked in camp to far and away be in the best shape of his career. He's just so ready for that moment and everything that was there for him. And also, I think you're playing with house money a little bit. He also has a girlfriend in his life right now, which I promise has done some good for him behind closed doors. He wants to put up this front often, I think, at being this dude, but I think behind closed doors, like oftentimes, I think he connects differently when the cameras are not on with people individually. So I was happy for Sean. I kind of liked him going into the fight. I don't bet MMA. I think maybe on this show I said, see him plus 230 by his name, and everybody loving Fluffy. I think Fluffy would like one back there. So yeah, but I enjoyed that fight card a little bit last weekend.
So with Strickland, is it Khamzat? Yeah, I always say it wrong. Is it Chimaev or bust for Strickland now?
I think if he stays the course, I think other than Chimaev, I think a lot of those guys are beatable. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a bigger fight than, let's say, Nasruddin Imavov getting that opportunity against Chimaev. Chimaev, Strickland, I mean, you heard on the Anik Florian podcast, they were talking about it this week. I mean, even putting those guys in the same room, getting to the fight, so much heat on that matchup. And I also think that the way Sean Strickland fights, it would be fun to see Chimaev, do what he does to a guy like Sean Strickland. But Chimaev moves the needle for my brother and I like nobody else.
Well, and Strickland, the fighter, has only gotten better and better and better and better. His hands were great. You just, and the other thing too is, I think you're right. That guy's name, by the way, is Alex Honnold, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you. That's right.
And the whole, like, to the fear part of the brain, like, that's the thing that is scary about Sean Strickland. There are fighters who will say, "Oh, I'll die to try to win." I believe him. I don't believe everybody that says it.
Agreed.
I believe Sean Strickland whenever he says it, and whatever he says with a microphone in his hand, be damned. You put him in an octagon, and I'm watching. And that 100%. fight against Chimaev, I mean, I don't know if that's a White House card fight or something like that, but my God. And the heat, see, that's the other thing that I appreciate about it too, Jay. I get it, the mixed martial arts. I'm not saying it's gentlemanly because it isn't, but there is a level of respect. And if I knew I'm going in watching a fight, and I know there may be no respect between the two, I'm that gassed up even more. And I would think Strickland versus Chimaev would be one of those where maybe, just maybe, somebody could do something stupid, and it makes me want to watch even more.
I hear you. Speaking of wanting to watch or wanting to be there, so I've talked about the UFC event at the Sphere a couple years ago, September 2024. Mayweather-Pacquiao 2 is going to be at the Sphere on September 19th. And for those that were in the building, it is an incredible fucking venue for combat sports. I can't even imagine. And boxing doesn't always move the needle for me necessarily, but gosh, I mean, the tickets are going to be insane for that. I wonder if they'll be able to do it quite as well as the UFC, because the UFC pitched a fucking perfect game that night in that building.
Yeah, they did, and I have no interest in that fight. They could fight in my snow. They could fight in my snow-covered backyard. They could play chicken in my pool. I wouldn't give a shit. Neither of them are in their prime. This is a pure nostalgic money grab. It's a reminder that nostalgia works. This would be like putting Mark Coleman and Tank Abbott in there again, or something like that. Like, honest to God, this is no interest whatsoever. And luckily for one of these two guys, neither one of them are at the point to where they can kill one another, because somebody, I would think, would be open to take the proverbial kill shot from one of them, and neither one of them are able to deliver it. So, this is just a bunch of, as my old offensive line coach would say, he would yell at us when we weren't being physical, and you're out there titty bumping. And this is going to be a titty bump fight.
It's more about the Mayweather walkout than anything else. I buy my tickets for that almost.
Who's going to be with him, and who's going to be dressed up as the San Diego Chicken or something like that.
Exactly. So I'm leaving this Sunday. Professional Grappling Federation begins their regular season next Wednesday night, March 4th. So I'll be in Vegas for 6 straight Wednesdays. Bye, girls. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, Dad. I won't.
Oh boy, yeah. When they drop Dad off at the airport, you get a kick in the ass out the door.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So, but going out early, spend a couple days with my brother, which I look forward to. But I won't be in the building for that UFC fight card. You will be, and then will you be at VSiN Sunday morning?
Yeah. In fact, I think I'm going to get up real early. It'll be tough. But I think I'm going to, because I want to do a show from the Circus Studios. I think it's really what it is. Yeah.
You have to.
For that, so for the show that I do on VSiN, I'm home just like here. But they at 5 a.m., that hockey game started 5:10 a.m. Vegas time. And when we were getting ready to load up for the show on VSiN, one of the cameras just happened to be on the seats in the sports book. And I said down the line before the show to the producer, hey, can we go to that like during the game or whatever? And he's like, oh, yeah. Jay, it was half full at 5:10 a.m. It was completely full by about 7 a.m. there. And the reaction in the book was half gambler, half Americans cheering that they won. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It was pretty cool. I dig that atmosphere. I am excited to wake up early and do the show from there, even though it's like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. I just want to experience it one time. That's all. I do it once, get it out of my system, and then, leave me in my in the upper corner of my house in my little hovel here to do the rest of it.
I love it. Well, good stuff. Too bad we're not going to connect out in Vegas, but we will bring another guest to you next week.
Oh, yeah, baby. And NCAA tournament. We have, I know that we are not the biggest college basketball people, but we will still at least give you some thoughts and leans and stats and trends or whatever for the upcoming conference tournaments, because it is here. The conference. How about this? PC was supposed to play tonight, and they can't get Providence dug out in time, so they had to push it to tomorrow. I forget who they're playing. Somebody's got to do a fly-in, so they got to wait for the airport to open. They got to move, 38 inches of snow or whatever. It's you live in a different, like, we're on planet Hoth up here. We really are. I need Superman to come and just, nuke all the snow and make it all go away, but it ain't gonna happen.
Dude, and like, I'm sitting here, I know it sounds crazy, but like, I don't have the heat on in my house and it's cold, right? And no, I'm serious. Like, it's 40s outside, which we're not used to, right? And so I'm like sitting here cold, yet it's fucking beautiful outside, and I can't wait to go feel that crisp. It's for the birds, man. I'm old as fuck. I'm staying right where I am.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to the warmer climate. I mean, this was... again, they say this is a once in a lifetime storm. Well, I'm going to try to hold them to it. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for us. There's your latest edition of Gas. We will see you next week right here for another edition. We'll get more into the Celtics. We'll get more into college basketball. And I'm sure somebody will do something stupid along the way that we'll want to talk about. For Jay, I'm Gresh. We're out of here.